I don't know how I get this, but in my life, I think the whole life is an experience.
Yeah.
It's like playing a game because there's no science proof you can live a second life. So assuming there's only one life you can live, I think the life is an experience. I don't want to measure the experience by how rich I am because this is meaningless at the end. If you have billions of dollars at the end, you're still dying. So I really want to do a few different things and do these things well during this time. And I had this thinking back to college.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Chinatown 2.0, a show about Chinese immigrants thriving. I'm your host, Richard Yan. As you know, the show's format is interviews with members of the Chinese immigrant community that I consider to be leading interesting lives and having fresh perspectives. So today I'm interviewing someone exactly like that. He is my friend Nuo Yan. He is a senior software engineer at a Japanese company in Tokyo. So Nuo, I have come to know him in San Francisco when I was working for a startup called Scratch, a loan servicing business. And Nuo was the founding engineer of that startup. So a little origin story about Nuo. He landed in America at the age of 18, pursuing a BA in computational math at the University of Washington. After graduation, instead of working for a large company, as many Chinese immigrants do, he decided to work for a very, very young company and maybe even considered a startup at the time, which was called Chef. And after that, he worked for another startup that was subsequently acquired by Pinterest. And after Pinterest, he moved on to Scratch and was the founding engineer there. During all this time, Nuo has basically cultivated his craftsmanship in being a software architect, a very good one at that. So I like Nuo for his refreshing perspectives, his genuine personality, and his rigorous thinking style. Now, Nuo moved to Japan after having spent 4 years at Scratch in San Francisco, and he is going to talk about interesting perspectives of living in Japan today. So we covered a variety of topics. We talked about his origin story, about how he came to be who he is today, how he developed this kind of mindset of being a software architect, and differences in terms of living in Japan versus China versus the US. It was a great conversation. I certainly enjoyed it. I hope you do too. And if you like our show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thank you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, looks like we're on. Hey Noah, how's it going?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Long time no see you in person.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where you are, what are you working on right now, how you see your identity. Identity meaning professional identity, but you could also interpret in more broader terms.
Mm-hmm. So I live in Japan right now. I live in Tokyo.
Okay.
I'm a software engineer. I work for one of the biggest Japanese tech companies right now. And professionally, I see myself as a like an architect, designing systems for the company. Personally, like as a pet, I think I see myself as a Chinese living in Japan.
Can you break down the term architect for us a little bit?
In software engineering, there are kind of different roles. You can be an engineer writing code. I think you can be an engineer maintaining the system, operating the system, or you can be testing the system. Architect basically is similar to a architect in the architecture space. Like you mostly control and manage the design of the systems. And then you create like high level structure, high level designs, and then for different engineers will be able to actually code them and operate the systems. In our company, like we other than defining the vision and the very high level like way of doing things, our job is mainly to support the engineers. Like the engineers will actually come up with their own designs, and we do design reviews and making sure everything is good, like it's integrated well.
Okay, I see. Just a little background. We knew each other from Scratch, a startup based in San Francisco. And at the time, I was doing business development and finance, and Nuo was one of the principal architects. I mean, he was probably the only founding engineer at the time, right, together with the CTO.
Mhm.
And prior to this, Noah, you were at Pinterest, and before then you were at Chef, right?
Yeah. So before Pinterest, I worked at a startup in Seattle,
Okay.
and our startup got acquired. I was also one of the founding engineers there, and we got acquired by Pinterest. That's how we joined Pinterest. And then
Okay.
before that, I was the first engineer at Chef. Chef was another like startup. Maybe people don't know. It's actually nowadays pretty famous infrastructure automation company, but it's very specialized. So you may not have heard the name.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with you a while back, and then I think I analogized Chef to Docker, and you said it was similar, but
It basically
okay.
automates the infrastructure
Yeah.
and allow you to automate your configuration and security compliance by code. So it's always reproducible, always testable.
Right.
Okay.
So maybe we can zoom out a little bit, right? I know you went to University of Washington and studied math with computational math, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after I think your first job was basically in the startup space. You didn't do the whole, big tech journey, right?
I worked at Microsoft during college, and
Okay.
at the time, the original plan was actually to join Microsoft after graduation, and I
Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
But I had the opportunity to very extremely randomly, the the founding team, the co-founders of Chef, looked at all of the resumes in the resume book of our university, and then picked. I was one of the person being picked to talk to them. So I had a
Okay.
conversation with them. I'm really impressed about their background, and I thought like so they were alumni from Amazon, Microsoft, and they're already very high up when they founded Chef.
Yeah.
So I thought like it was a great opportunity to me because like if I work for Microsoft to be able to work with these kind of people, like I would need to at least like be there for a few years until I even had the opportunity maybe to talk with these people. Basically, I was mostly thinking about learning, like in
Yeah.
terms of learning things. I thought like I could probably learn more,
Yeah.
which was actually true, not just because of the people, but also because at a startup you do everything, so you learn a
Right.
lot.
Right. So one thing I'm very impressed by you, and I don't think I said this in person before, is I feel that in you I see this sort of 极客精神. All of a sudden, I can't remember how to say it in English, but
Mm.
sort of this maybe pursuit of excellence in engineering mindset.
Mm.
So I am the co-founder of a blockchain company now, and there are many engineers that I work with, and
Mm.
I've basically been more exposed to the way engineering works in China, right? Albeit it's a very small window.
Mm.
I generally feel that there's not a whole lot of long-term thinking, and there's a lot of tech debt being accumulated as a result of that kind of mentality, right? So the stereotype I feel is that the engineering talents in the West seem to think more long-term, and they want to design something that will last. And when they're designing something, they're not just doing copying and pasting. They reason from first principles, right? And a lot of them also do this for fun because they think that making something durable and not just something that works is more fun. So first of all, do you agree that you sort of subscribe to that mentality of 极客精神, right? And the second thing is, do you agree with the assessment that it just seems that this type of mentality is more prevalent among our Western counterparts in the engineering community?
Yeah, at first I agree that myself, for myself, I care about the quality of engineering. Yeah, but I think it's mostly like working in a company is mostly driven by the business. So if the business has a need of like moving really fast, it doesn't matter if it breaks, doesn't matter if you can hire people to take care of some very difficult cases. Like in all Chinese apps, you have the option to talk to a customer service representative very easily, and they help you
I
like
see.
yeah. So if you have that option, and if the business needs you to move really fast, and it's very clear that it doesn't matter if it breaks in some cases, then I think being hacky is okay. Like yeah,
I
you
see.
don't like in if that's the requirement, you don't have to build something very extremely spend like a lot of effort to build something very high quality. It's
Okay.
not very useful. But if you're building, especially if you're building something like a shopping app, like a selfie app, like it wouldn't damage anything if it breaks a little bit. Like if the like count, follower counts off by one, it probably doesn't matter. It was even actually true at Pinterest. Like if a pin you see the like count off by one, you probably don't care. Most people probably don't care. So you're probably not going to spend a lot of effort to just fix that one thing to make that thing great. But if you're working on some systems like a banking system or like about people's money or about people's life, like imagining if you're designing the software for Boeing airplanes, like that actually impact, or some medical systems impacts people's lives or money. I think in those cases you need to be really, really careful and avoid being very hacky, making sure things are right. Yeah, so that's my thinking. And then compared to Chinese companies versus US companies, I think there are hacky engineers everywhere. Is almost equal, but maybe the phenomenon you see more Chinese company being more hacky is because a lot of Chinese companies nowadays are moving very, very fast from founding to going public. Maybe that's a result of that. But those are definitely, I don't think those are like financial companies and like stuff.
Oh man, this is 100% true. And this is very interesting. So basically for mission critical applications that have very severe consequences of going wrong, you want to get everything right. And then for things where being off a little bit doesn't really matter, then you're optimizing for the speed of rollout instead of for minimizing the risk of a failure. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, thanks for clearing that up for me.
And also, speaking of that, like I think that a lot of Chinese startups nowadays that are operating at a speed that we, like in America, like, I don't think we can catch up. It's so much faster.
What is it about you that makes you the sort of architect mentality that you are, so that you wouldn't want to patch things up and hack things together, even for a POC?
Maybe it was influenced by my parents. Like maybe when I was young, that like I believe in working hard. Yeah. Like working hard and then working like be very responsible. And do things like the best I could. I think maybe that mentality was from my childhood days, maybe influenced by my parents. I couldn't think of any case that I wanted to like take shortcuts or anything.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe I think you're right. I think maybe I had some like this kind of mentality even like in the childhood days.
Okay, I think parental influence is certainly important. I mean, the thing is, I think I see many intelligent Chinese people in US or China, right? But there's a general mentality of trying to get rich quick or get to places faster. And that results in taking shortcuts and so on. In general, I just think it's very precious to have this long-term, not cutting the corner sort of mentality.
Also, I've never thought about like being rich or anything. Like, I agree with you. A lot of people are thinking about like, I need to get rich, get financial freedom, and then retire. I don't like that argument because I don't like you don't actually retire. You're very young. You're like 30, 40. You're still going to do things. So like in my I don't know how I get this, but like I want like in my life, I think the whole life is a experience. Yeah. It's like playing a game because there's no science proof you can live a second life. So assuming there's only one life you can live, I think the life is a experience. I don't want to measure the experience by like how rich I am because this is meaningless at the end. Like if you have billions of dollars at the end, you're still dying. So I really want to like do a few different things and do these things well during this time. So I think that's what and I had this like thinking like ever since like I think college, back to college. So so this was my goal. So I wanted to try to do everything well and then do a few things well and then try all of those things in my life.
Right. Can I ask you this? So that mentality that you just mentioned, that value system that you have, do you see a lot of that in your immediate social circle?
No.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I, to be honest with you, I think a lot of this get rich quick sort of mentality actually comes from parental influence and maybe a little bit of peer influence, which ultimately still comes from the parental influence of your peers. And, something about China and the way China has been evolving has basically generated a sort of predominant thinking of reaching status as quickly as you can, regardless of the means. So it just feels, it's very strange, right? So I wonder if it's a matter of how China used to be an impoverished nation, and then there's a need to sort of build up your material wealth as quickly as possible. But it just feels that there are certain third world countries that are less developed than China, where I see people much more grounded and much more, where envy is not as popular,
I think it's because probably because of the development, the speed of development. I see like today's China very similar. I'm not sure how much you know about, like, read about like Japan's past
No, I
development.
don't know a lot about Japan, which is what I want to get into now. Yeah, but go ahead, please.
Today's China, I think is very similar to Japan, maybe 20, even 30 years ago.
Really?
If you look at people's like mentality, look at what people want, most people want, what the social situation is, I think it's almost the same.
Like, I see. So you're saying, so wait, so 30 years ago, we were talking about late 90s now, right? So wait, let's see. Yeah. So you're saying in 90s. So let's be very clear about what we're talking about. I'm referring to the phenomenon where there's a keeping up with the Joneses mentality that's very deep rooted in the society. It's everywhere, of course, right? I mean, even in the most developed countries, even in these utopian countries like Denmark, I'm sure there's this mentality of comparison, getting ahead, and in fact, a healthy dosage of that is what propels us forward. But but what I feel right now is that there's a sense of very anxious way of getting ahead, regardless of the way to get there, right? You see this with the P2P loan disaster. You see with, tons of crypto scams. And then prior to that, there's also these other exit scams and financial scams. So, and then you also know about the sub-quality foods in China, right? That endanger young babies even, right? So, so are you saying that in the late 90s, Japan also sort of mirrored China in that respect?
Probably the early 90s. I probably did the numbers wrong, but like, yeah, I think in late 80s, early 90s, Japan was like people are very ambitious. People build startups. People want to get rich very quickly, and then they actually got rich very quickly because they worked very hard, and then just like today's China, and then they travel the world. They go to the luxury brands like over the world. You saw, from what I read, I didn't experience
right.
From what I read, like, people saw Japanese people lying in lines like at the luxury stores, trying to buy things, but buying all of the expensive things. I think this was true until the economic crisis in Japan, like in early 2000s.
Okay, I see. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it was really similar. I think it was because whatever society is like developed in an unrealistic speed, like you get rich so easily. You have so many opportunities, so you get to this situation.
Okay, I see. I understand. Okay.
Also, food quality. Like back in that time, I also read about like food safety problems in Japan as well.
Okay.
And nowadays, Japan is one of the safest countries in terms of food quality, I think, in my opinion.
Right. And obviously there's that stereotype, that documentary called Jiro Dreams of Sushi, right? Where the guy just wants to make good sushi and sashimi, regardless of how the world is, evolving around him. And I really admire that. And I think that ultimately, though, people are social animals and you need social validation, right? Your most important need is to be validated by your parents. And then you need to be validated by your friends, right? And then, maybe your spouse and then friends. So I think if a culture basically espouses this kind of habit, this mode of thinking, right? then it makes it a little bit easier for the society to basically breed a next generation of experts and thinkers, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
right,
I,
but on the other hand, right, if parents are constantly saying, hey, you know, like I've heard tons of stories like this, right? You got a dad saying to a son, okay, you're the however old, you're still staying at home, you're not making nearly as much money as so and so. And but it just feels that the conversation usually stays quite shallow at that level. It doesn't go down to um, a deeper sense. So I guess I'm just trying to say that I still feel that there might be some fundamental differences in the two cultures, even though the economic circumstances of a bubble economy might be very similar between China's present and Japan's past.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like there are definitely like cultural differences, like and a lot of cultural differences. But I don't think like I'm personally pretty optimistic about China's future.
Yeah,
I think eventually when it settles down a little bit, like when everything is pretty developed, it doesn't like it when it's not being developed like at such a fast pace. Uh,
yeah,
and then also as like education being more common, like more people going to college, like we used to live in like pretty developed areas of China. Like everybody like going to college seems to be a normal thing, but there are still lots of people in China in the rural areas that couldn't have school.
right.
I think eventually when people receive more education and when economic development being like slowed down a little bit, being settled down like to the developed mode,
Yeah.
uh, I think it will and that people will start to care more about like culture and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Like to me, it's very easy to understand. Like when there's so many opportunities to chase, to be very rich, and that becomes a social mentality. It's
Right.
easy to be trapped into that like way of thinking.
Okay.
I'm not very worried about the long term. I think it will be eventually okay.
Okay. So maybe talk a little bit about Japan now. So I would love to hear your opinion now about how you think about living in Japan, why you decided to move to Japan, how you think about how it's different with America, and maybe back home in China. And also, what are your future plans in terms of your geographical location?
Mhm. So Japan is very extremely different from America. It's a very stable society. If the information is correct, I don't have, like uh, I haven't looked at it recently, but I think
Yeah.
something around 90% to 95% of people are in the same income range.
Okay.
So there are not a lot of people who are very rich, and not a lot of people who are very poor. Like there are like just a few percentage.
Okay.
If that information is correct, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding. Uh,
Okay.
and so given that, I think like as we talk about like China, a lot of people are getting rich very quickly.
Yeah.
So a lot of other people are very like admiring them because like everybody wants to use good things, wants to have good things. It's actually a little bit opposite of that in Japan,
Okay.
because everybody like makes about the same money.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when you go out, let's say if a guy dates a girl
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
go out and the guy and they went to a not very expensive like restaurant and the
Yeah.
guy even used some coupons to pay for their dinner. It's seen as pretty normal. It will not like the girl will not think badly about the boy.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
Okay.
so it's like
Right.
yeah.
So there's no like unrealistic expectations, and there's no sort of immediate judgment when it comes to people trying to be frugal. Because I guess the point you're trying to make here is that consumer behavior is kind of homogeneous because the income level is homogeneous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
That's
yeah, of
really
course,
interesting.
there are
Yeah.
like one-off cases. There are like edge cases who still buy luxury brands, and but like in general,
Right.
I think as a society is very stable.
Okay.
And that stableness, I think, has caused a different like mentality of most people. So they work. basically, I think Japan is more like a socialism country. Like
Okay.
people work, people get salary. Working's like a more like a routine than any other place
Yeah.
I've
Right.
seen.
It's like you
And
have to eat and go to the bathroom and sleep, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Keep going, please.
yeah. So there are good and bad, and the good I think is and like I said, it's very stable. And the reason, but it's not the reason why I moved here. The reason I moved here is because after coming to Japan many times, I
Yeah.
convinced myself that the life quality here is, at least for an Asian like myself, is
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
than, as an Asian, the life quality in terms of like food, entertainment choices, like going to hot springs, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those things, like I think those are a lot better than the US. So in
If
the
let's
US,
say hop, yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
the US, what we did was like every week when we buy grocery, we go to Whole Foods to buy some American grocery, but we also go to like Japanese stores, Chinese stores, to buy like Chinese ingredients, Japanese ingredients,
Right.
for the next week. Uh,
But
but
that's a minor inconvenience, right? I mean, you can basically get your full shopping cart by just going to a few more stores. Versus in Japan, it's a one-stop thing, right?
yeah, exactly, and higher quality. For example, we can buy
Okay.
like downstairs in my apartments. There's a very like 24-hour grocery store,
Yeah.
and then next to that 24-hour grocery store, within 5 minutes walking distance, you can find like at least 5 to 6 convenience stores, all
Right.
sell like pretty good quality things.
Okay. Okay.
Like in terms of Asian, like, I think a
Are you
Western,
in Tokyo, by the way? You're in
yeah,
Tokyo?
yeah.
Okay.
I
Right.
think somebody from a Western background may not find the same. It was actually very interesting. I was talking to an Italian, was it Italian? But somewhere from Europe. So I thought Japanese, for example, Japanese tomatoes were the best because they taste very good. It was a little bit sweet in the tomato.
Yeah.
Uh, but someone from Europe actually in Japan thought that the tomatoes here was very bad because it's not sour enough. So people from different cultural background probably would think things differently. But I think at least for Asians, the life functions are very convenient here. So that was the primary reason why I moved here.
I see. Okay. But how does immigration work here in terms of two things? Number one is the legal policy in terms of high-end immigrants. Is that easy? Is that difficult? And the second thing is, what about cultural assimilation? So I mean, you obviously don't look very different from a Japanese person, but I assume when you speak Japanese, you're going to have accents, or people are going to find out you're not originally from there. How do people basically think about the fact that you are an immigrant?
Mm-hmm.
So two different aspects.
Mm-hmm. So legally, it's very friendly. It's actually a lot. To my surprise, it was a lot more friendlier than the immigration policy in the U.S.
Okay, well, definitely now. But go ahead.
As a highly skilled professional, you are able to, depends on the points, there's the point system. And if you're like 70 points or above, you can get permanent residency in 3 years. And if you are like 80 points or above, you can, in theory, apparently haven't went through this yet, but like, in theory, you can get permanent residency in 1 year. Like in 1 year, you can apply. This was a new policy introduced a few years ago because of the lack of like children in Japan.
Right.
In Japan, because
negative growth in population.
Yeah.
Or anemic growth.
No, like labor working.
Right.
Yeah. So this is extremely friendly, and other than the highly skilled professional, like normal work visa is very easy to get. Like as long not like the U.S. In the U.S. if you want to get a work visa, there's a lot. There are only like there's a quota, so there's most likely a lottery like every year. And then even if you have a job, if you fail the work visa lottery, you can't work. In Japan, it's like as long as you get a job and then everything looks good, the application almost won't fail. Like you will get a work visa.
I see. Okay.
A normal work visa, I think, needs to be renewed every 3 years or something like that. And then after 10 years, you can apply for permanent residency.
Okay. I mean, because in the US, if you want to get H-1B, there's all kinds of hurdles. It's not just about the timing, it's also the cost. The employer basically needs to put up a certain amount of money, and And also it's just very tedious to go through all the paperwork. They need to hire lawyers, so that also introduces cost, right? And I think those were put in place to sort of deter that immigration.
And after spending all of these costs, maybe you can fail the lottery. So
Correct.
Yeah.
And in Japan, in Japan, they're welcoming immigrants with open arms, right? But when you say 70 points, 80 points, so what would be the requirements to get an 80 points, for example?
Yeah, the details can be found on the immigration's website, but like basically say if you graduate from college, you get 10 points. If you speak Japanese at N1 level, you get 10 points.
I see. Okay.
Whatever,
Do they discriminate by country?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
It's purely by qualification. Like if you work for 10, if you have 5 years of working experience, you get 2 points, whatever points. And then if you have 10 years, you get 10 points.
How about ranking by profession? So if you enter the country as a programmer versus, let's say, a laborer, is there a difference?
There are some different categories. For the highest, if you are on the highly skilled professional visa, there were, it was separated by management or technical.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, like you could be a manager visa, like managing category of the highly skilled visa or technical. Otherwise, I don't know for sure, but there are a few different visa categories. There are like engineering visa and then visa. Yeah.
So what about the cultural assimilation part? Do you feel more at home in Japan versus being in America?
I think Japan fits my personality better, but not necessarily great for everyone. Like I'm relatively quiet. I don't speak a lot. I also don't like I said before, I don't have a lot of self-confidence actually. So I don't. Yeah. So when I talk in America, I think I have a disadvantage.
Right.
Because like if somebody talks like above what they actually know, I normally talk below what I actually, or at the same level of what I actually know. Like I don't.
Right.
So
you don't tend to exaggerate, and
right.
And there's type A personalities. There's this sales mentality that's always trying to sell you stuff.
Yeah, so I get it. From that perspective, I'm more integrated into the Japan society that like people don't talk about.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not a trivial thing. It's actually very important.
Yeah, there are also things I don't like. For example, I think Americans in general, I think, are more open-minded. Like not open-minded. That's not the word. It's like more willing to speak their own what they're actually thinking about.
Sure. Right.
America, like
they're more direct.
It actually makes your conversation a lot easier. Like I tell you what I think, and you tell me what you think, and like it's done. In Japan, because of culture, it's a little similar to China, but I think it's another extreme. China is less extreme about this. That like not normally, but like a lot of times you don't really say what you're actually feeling about.
Yeah.
就是
场面话，对，这个客气话、官话，对吧？
Right. Yeah. So there's a thing called reading the air in Japan. Like you need to know how to read the air.
Right. So reading the room here, right?
Yeah.
Or reading between the lines. I guess that's different, but I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. I probably not do well then. Okay. Interesting. But what about the innovation / wealth accumulation aspect? I'm referring to the fact that in America, there are stories about, you make plaid, you sell it for, how much did they sell for? 5 billion or something? And they basically built this thing over 10 years. A lot of work went into it, but, it was a smart product and they made it. And so I think the reason why some people like America, the reason why Elon Musk moved to America is to pursue this grand vision of his, right? To be able to build something really spectacular, get help from lots of interesting engineers, and make a lot of money. So, like, do you see that kind of thing happening in Japan?
It's happening, but not happening a lot. So I think compared to China and the US, I think China and the US are both having a lot more innovations than Japan. Even what I said before, like Japan being very stable, a lot of young people nowadays are really, really not ambitious. They don't want to,
Okay.
they actually don't want to be very rich. They don't have the will to be very rich or very have a lot of impact to impact the society. They just want to
Right.
go to work, like have a stable job.
Right.
I don't want to generalize, but it's definitely, I think it's definitely true for a lot of people
Okay. Okay.
as a phenomenon.
Okay. Well, so I I suspect one reason why they can afford to do that is because of the deflation, the fact that things are not going up in price significantly, right? So let me ask you this: do they get their own apartments? Do they rent their own apartment? When they get married, do they buy an apartment or a house?
Normally people buy, but like now, like in the recent years, I've seen more young people like just rent.
Okay. Okay. But is there a custom? You know how in China, if you want to get married, you have to own a house and a car, right?
No, there's not, no,
There's
not
none
that.
of that. Okay, so you just rent basically, and that's considered socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay. And the truth is that a lot of people do not want children to start with, right? So they wouldn't necessarily have the pressure of saying, oh, we have to get a place sufficiently sized and get a good school district or something.
Well, it
Or
seems
maybe there's
nowadays
less
a
pressure.
lot of people, a lot of young people don't even want to get married.
Oh, I see. You're talking about Japan, right?
In Japan.
Because I don't think that statement is true in China. I don't know about
No.
America, but it's not true in China.
Yeah.
Oh, I
In
see.
Japan, like I think the motivation of getting married is historically low at this moment.
I see. Got it. Got it. So maybe talk to me a little bit more about your decision of leaving America for Japan. So I think there are two different things to explore there. Number one is leaving America. Number two is coming to Japan, right? And leaving America, what were some things that you felt were sort of the reason why you decided that this was not going to be a long-term home for me, right? I mean, you did mention about, your personality and the cultural fit, but maybe if you can elaborate a little bit more, that'd be great. And the second part is coming to Japan. So why not say Singapore or Korea, for example, if you're so open-minded about just moving to another East Asian country?
Mm-hmm. So leaving America, like I said, was mostly for me. It's not very interesting, but mostly for me it was a life choice, like a life function choice. Like
Okay.
at the end of the days when we were in like last year when we were in America, we bought like a lot of things air shipped from Japan. We got like we got wagyus, like even food like fish shipped from Japanese vendors to our house in America. We
Oh,
bought
wow.
like Japanese furniture. We bought like looking at our home like, and what we do. We basically
Right,
are
right,
living in Japan more expensively.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
thought it was also
I think that's the Japanese equivalent of a Francophile. The people living in America that loves French food, French language, French people, French
mhm,
vacations, French,
mhm,
I don't know, everything, philosophy, political system.
mhm.
I feel, yeah, I see that equivalent in you, but from a Japan perspective.
Yeah. So the last June we took a vacation in Japan for a
Okay.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know what was special. Like at that point, we already came. Like we had been to Japan like for like at least 10 times, 20 times.
Yeah.
I don't know what was special about that trip, but after that trip, when we were back in the U.S., we
Yeah.
started thinking maybe we should really seriously consider moving to Japan.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So to say why, I also don't know, but like
Right.
yeah, but I think
Yeah.
like the convenience of life and because of
Well, it's great that you and your family, your wife are aligned on this aspect,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
we actually created a spreadsheet. We listed like many different options, like leave to Japan or not leave, but it's like still stay in the US. And then we
Pros and
analyzed,
cons.
yeah, pros and cons, assigned like scores to the pros and cons.
Okay.
And finally, like, it was a very detailed and comprehensive analysis. And
Oh
then
man. Okay.
yeah, we also listed problems. Like we listed a few
Right.
like problems we can imagine
Right.
that like we wanted to say, like, for example, after coming to Japan, maybe after some time, we run into some really bad things that we
Yeah.
did when we were tourists here.
Right.
At least in that situation happens, we can say, oh, yes, we envision this will happen, and we even if this happened, we still think this is a good choice. So we
I
ran through
see.
a lot of
So you
these
did
kind
some
of
stress.
scenarios.
You did some
Yeah,
stress test.
yeah.
Are you able to share what kind of bad thing happened when you guys were tourists here?
No. What I was saying was
Oh, those
like
are hypothetical, you mean?
because yeah, hypothetical because when you're a tourist to a country, you most likely experience the best. But when you
Oh,
actually
I see. I see.
when you actually go as a resident, then you start to
Right.
see maybe not so great things.
Right. I see.
Hypothetically, we started to think about those not so great things, and we want to tell ourselves that at the time we run into those things, like even though like we run into those things, we still think moving to Japan is a good choice. Like
Right.
so this is a little logically it's a little hard because like at the time we're making this spreadsheet, we wanted to say if all of this happens, we still wanted to move to Japan. If that's true,
Yeah.
then we want to pull the trigger.
I see. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So it
But
sounds like it's actually a pretty strong
fortunately,
decision.
like it's been 6 months, 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
We haven't run into a single thing that we thought was really bad.
Yeah. You actually seem slightly happier than when you're here.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think I'm a lot
you
happier.
normally seem pretty happy. A lot. Okay. That's great. Great to hear. So, okay, what about the second part then? So why not Korea or Singapore? Or maybe was it just by accident because you happen to have visited Japan many times?
That's really hard to say.
Yeah.
So
Or Hong Kong.
we considered we considered Hong Kong, Tokyo, Taipei, and
Yeah. Oh, Taipei, right? Of course.
and Shanghai.
Shanghai. Okay.
There are different pros and cons of each place.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I have a special like
Affinity.
emotion, like love for Japan. I don't know why. I actually really don't know why. If you so I like this is a different topic, but I lately started to believe in fate.
Oh wow. Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I really can't, sometimes it really can't explain like why. Like there are a lot of like 1,000 ways one thing could happen. I don't believe in fate in the sense that I think like you can do nothing and things are prearranged and you would just do like it would just naturally happen. I don't think that. I think people need to work hard in order to get the things they want. But I somewhat believe in fate in the sense that like sometimes you can like there are a lot of choice. There are a lot of like situation every day, and for some reason you went for one of the like.
Right. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I know. I know what you're saying. It's like your calling, right? So your calling can be your life's choice. It could be the person you marry. It could be the work that you decide to dedicate your time to, right?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my family had moved a lot of different places. So I was born in Northeast, and then I was raised in different cities in Guangdong. So, but the thing is, I don't really have a home sense. I have a sense of home, but I don't have a sense of like home city. If an airplane lands in the city, like for example, for a lot of other people, if they go back to their hometown, they know this is my home. For me, I don't have that feeling. Like until I see my parents, I don't feel being at home, like being at a home city, no matter where it was. So very, very strangely, when I came to Tokyo the second time, I had some kind of that home feeling. I don't know why. I completely don't know why. At the moment the airplane landed, I had that feeling. So I don't know what's special about it.
Got it. You know, I think the other thing special about your career is that being a hardcore programmer and very qualified programmer. I know you're going to be humble about it, but you know, I suspect you're one of the top out there in your field. So that gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of where to work. So when you apply to these Japanese companies, you had many options to choose from. And had you decided to stay in the US or move to Korea or in Japan or Hong Kong or Singapore, there would have been other similar offers waiting for you. And basically not having that pressure of that uncertainty of how am I going to make a decent living, the world sort of opens up to you, and then you get to choose your home city. Don't you think?
Yeah. I think that's true. It's very fortunate that like in the engineering field, it's easy to relocate. It's easy to find jobs. Like
so before you went to University of Washington, you were studying in Guangzhou, is that right?
In Zhanjiang.
Zhanjiang is a city in Guangdong?
Yeah, next to Hainan.
Okay, I see. I see. And I assume that you were doing very well in the math and science courses,
Um,
or maybe all around.
I was doing okay. I was
Really?
doing
Okay.
better. I was doing better in the junior high school than in the real high school.
Oh, why? Why is that? What happened?
I started to volunteer a lot, like at Microsoft events, doing like other things. So not had a lot of time focused on studying
Microsoft events in Zhanjiang?
in Shanghai, Beijing, like or some
I
like
see.
I participate in like a lot in the online communities.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm really
I was
wow.
awarded
So
the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional when I was like 16.
most valuable professional at
Yeah,
Microsoft when you were
basically
16.
by
Okay.
basically by going online and helping other people about technical problems.
Oh, I see. You basically were like, you know, like a mayor of over Stack Overflow or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
I got it. Okay, hold on. So you were 16. At what age did you come to the US?
18.
Okay, got it. I see. Okay, okay. But I see. But the point is, assume you're helping people with programming stuff, or was it more like just desktop maintenance? Like how do you format a disk or something?
At that point, mostly like maintenance. Like yeah, mostly like two areas. One area is
Yeah,
the Windows, like how do you use a computer,
right.
and the other area was the server stuff, like how to maintain your
Servers.
server. Yeah, your
Oh,
Windows
I see.
computer.
Servers, you said, right? Got it. Okay, okay.
Like
I see.
network administration stuff.
So how did you decide to come to the US, and how did you decide on University of Washington?
Uh, so I so thinking about this, I don't think this is necessarily a good thing, but I had decided that I wanted to be a software engineer very early in my life,
Okay.
like even
How early are we talking about?
uh,
16?
elementary school.
Elementary school. Hold on. So that would have been, let's see,
The
do some
90s,
quick math here. 90s?
1996, 7-ish.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think we're very similar age. I was born in 84. Were you 84?
86.
I see. Okay. Similar. Got it. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so I decided that very early, and then it didn't change. So when I picked college, I wanted to pick some college that's good at like math, computer science.
Right. Makes sense. But why did you not want to just go through Gaokao?
Oh, because well, I still think like at that moment I thought that like if you want to do something you want to do something well, you better like go to the best university.
Okay.
UW's computer science program ranks very high, like math,
Right.
computational math, computer science program rank very high.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, I also applied for other higher schools, but I didn't get admitted. So, uh,
Okay. Right. Right.
uh,
Right. I understand. I see.
yeah. Also because I was like volunteering at like a Microsoft events communities,
Right.
uh, I had a will of like joining Microsoft.
Right. Right.
So I
Right. Right.
picked Washington, which is like next to the headquarters.
Right. Right. Got it. Got it.
And
Got it.
actually, it followed my plan. I actually went to Microsoft.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Wow. Cool. Well, Noah, you kind of remind me of this little story, and maybe I'll just tell this in closing. I know you're a busy person. Your company needs you, but um, actually, before I tell the story, I wanted to ask you one more thing. What about the cultural assimilation? We never got to that point.
Oh,
So, right. So when you talk to Japanese people, either in your daily life, when you visit the grocery store, or when like go to a restaurant, or when you interact with coworkers professionally, do you feel like a foreigner? Do you feel like being treated as a foreigner?
this is a very good question.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like being treated as a foreigner, not in a negative way. So culturally,
Yeah.
so it's like it's definitely not being racist. So culturally, it's a
Yeah.
little different. So people, what I feel, people in Japan, uh,
Yeah.
say if I speak Japanese, but maybe my Japanese is not very good.
Uh-huh.
Uh, when I say a service provider, like when I go to the supermarket or whatever, listen to my not very good Japanese and couldn't understand,
Right.
they feel very apologetic. They feel very apologetic to not be able to speak the language I speak. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I was treated as a foreigner in that way. So
right. You told me. Right. Wait, hold on a second. But I remember you told me something about how if you're a tourist, you're treated as a god, but then if you're a local, you're treated very differently. Remember?
Yeah. So if say if I spoke like
I see.
Japanese,
Perfect Japanese. Yeah.
As a part of the society, then I need to follow the rules. There are certain rules like you're expected to do.
Right.
But if I'm just a
tourist, what are some of these rules that are out of ordinary? I mean, you have to stand in line. You have to not talk as loud in public spaces. And you have to smoke in designated areas.
It's not really like terrible rules, but you just need to be aware that they exist. Like not talking in a train, for example.
Okay. Right. Oh, I see.
Even if you talk, nobody will say anything.
Right. I see what you mean now. Yeah.
During the weekend, local people talk as well. You can see the difference. Like during weekdays, the trains are very quiet. Right. Even if it's packed, and during the weekend, everybody is like relaxed and they talk to each other.
Right. Oh man, it's almost like they had some kind of military training where they know all these customs that they're supposed to adhere to.
One thing though I have to say, the culture here, people care about what other people thinks. So I think in the US, you live more freely in the sense that you have a better choice of not caring about what other people think about you. Right. Other people, of course, will still judge you. I think in the US, like people judge people anyways, but you may not care.
Right.
Yeah, and here more people I think care about what other people thinks in the culture.
Okay, but when you say caring about what other people think, are you referring to your appearance? Are you referring to your status? Are you referring to your credentials?
Like your demeanor? Like what? For example, it's not very common, say, to wear only shorts to go out. So if you say if you go to the gym and then after the gym you change to normal clothes and then take the train and go home, or do you maybe for convenience you just wear the
shorts, the workout clothes,
and stuff.
And that's frowned upon.
Yeah, so people may look at you, may judge. They may think about this, may judge you. So and if you don't care, it's still okay. Like they won't tell you anything.
Right.
But there's the social pressure. If you want to integrate in this society, maybe you shouldn't do something like out of extraordinary.
Okay, that's fascinating because from the West, when they think about Japanese stuff, they think about how certain Japanese people act very differently from the norm, right? Like I've heard about a service that this woman provides where she just hugs strangers in Japan.
It's very. I think some parts of the Japanese culture. There's still a lot for me to learn, but I think that some parts of Japanese culture is very conflicting.
Right. And then there's vending machines where you can basically buy used underwear from women. Mm-hmm. It's just so it's very it's maybe this also happens in different social layers. Perhaps I don't know. Maybe it's the the fringe, right? Like at the end of the day, when you observe something that seems so different, you're observing the extremes, and it's very common to mistake the extreme for the norm, right? Because you're ignoring, because when you hear stuff on the news, it's like, oh my God, look at how surprising this is. Look at all this clickbaity headline. But in fact, like 99% of the people do not act like that. And you're talking about the 99%, I'm talking about the 1%. And that's why it's different.
That's probably true. But it's also, it's actually also conflicting. Most people care about what other people thinks, but you do also, like, if you actually do something not very normal, not in the what the norm does. I feel it's still allowed in this society. Like if you ask me to do something on the street that's very weird, like something performing art or something.
Right.
I would say it's doable. It's actually pretty doable in Japan. Like people on one hand care about what other people think, but on the other hand, don't care about a lot about what other people are doing. Like it's a mix.
I see. So on the one hand, they're worried, they're self-conscious. On the other hand, they're also tolerant of others. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's a culture of like not making trouble to other people in Japan. Like whatever you think about other people, if what I do troubles other people, there's this kind of culture. So not like caring about whether like if somebody is performing things in the middle of the street, not showing disrespect is one of the things you do to not trouble them. But as you as a person, you also normally don't want to do things like out of ordinary because you don't want to get judged by other people. You don't want to like trouble other people. So it's very
right. So, okay, maybe I'll just end with one more question, which is relevant for people that are looking to immigrate out of China, right? Like people want to move out of China for various reasons. So maybe some people want to have their wealth be not trapped in China, right? They want to keep it in somewhere else, safe haven. And maybe for some people, it's about just the social stability, right? Maybe some people are worried about, like the types of things that we're observing in Hong Kong happening elsewhere. And then for some people, maybe it's a measure of status, right? And maybe for some people, it's also just a life choice, like you said, right? Food safety, supposedly more happy kids, and so forth. So what advice would you give to, say, parents in China that are contemplating sending their children to study abroad, right? I mean, that's happening in droves right now. So the default seems to be an English-speaking country, right? And America seems to be the ideal place for that. Like, do you think it would be wise for them to also consider Japan as a future destination?
So yeah, I think you're right. Like the only thing that Japan is not as great as America, like in terms of their choice, like to go to college for, is because it's like Japanese is not as a commonly accepted like language. You can only use Japanese in Japan, versus if you study in the US, you get better English ability. You can use the ability globally.
Right. You can also come back to China, and because your English is better, you'll get better treatment.
Yeah. So from that perspective, US is probably better, and I think it depends on the area that the student wants to focus on. I think for engineering, US also has better schools.
Right.
Well, Japan has top schools, like University of Tokyo, for example. If you can get in, it's very good, but it's a lot harder. I think it's a lot harder to get into University of Tokyo to get into a very good school in the US, a similarly good school in the US. I also think, like I said, I'm very optimistic about China.
Okay.
I think it's good to go out to say for college or something, to study, to see the world, basically broaden your vision, like your right. But I think if they choose to go back to China for their career, or maybe work in the US abroad, US or Japan or whatever, for a couple of years and then go back to China, I think there's also a lot of opportunities there. I think in my opinion, I think there are equal opportunities in China versus in Silicon Valley that they can develop themselves. I think Japan, because it's too stable, if they're my age, they can come here, live a life. But I think if they're in the early 20s,
if they're in the growth stage of that startup,
I think going to the US, not just the US, but particularly Silicon Valley, going to Silicon Valley, or stay in China, like after college, stay in China, going to some startups will exercise their muscles.
Right. But if I understand you correctly, you also said that if someone just stays in China, that's fine too, right? There's also lots of opportunities.
A lot of Chinese universities are really good. If they can, it's a matter of how hard it is to get into the good universities there versus globally. Like say, it may be really hard for them to go to Tsinghua.
Right.
Like if they could go to Tsinghua, I would go to Tsinghua. Like it is very good. Like if it's a lot easier for them to go to say whatever school in the US that's equally good, then maybe that's a better choice.
Okay. Understood.
But innovation wise, like after college wise, I think China has equal opportunities compared to the US.
Okay. By the way, the vibe that you get from your Chinese network of engineers in terms of the atmosphere for doing startups and succeeding in an internet business, are you still feeling a very positive tone? Meaning, are people still very optimistic and they basically feel with the COVID situation and economic slowdown globally speaking, there are still opportunities domestically in China?
I think this goes back to our, like, what's your definition of success? So I think if your success,
let's say making unicorns.
Yeah, if your success means making unicorns, I'm still optimistic about that, but it may or may not happen. But if your success, like in my value system, if your success means you're experienced this, then you learn about things, and then you can do the next thing better. Then there are tons of opportunities.
Right, of course. I mean, I suppose if you're at peace, it's very easy to be happy. I used to read this quote: "It's easy for a human to be happy, but it's very hard for one to be happier than other people." And some people try to be happier than other people, or maybe they try to match other people's perceived happiness. Mm-hmm. So anyway, let me just end with a very quick story. I hope it will be worth your time. So this is actually a fable that I read when I was a very young kid, right? So there was this king that's just constantly worried about things. He's worried about his health. He's worried about, whether his throne's going to get taken away. He's worried about whether people will revolt, right? And he's worried about people stealing his wealth and so forth. So, and then he basically summoned his doctor and said, "Hey, find me, I need to basically be happier. How can I do that?" So the doctor said, "Okay, you need to find the happiest person you can find, okay? And you need to make sure you can wear his, make sure he has a white shirt, and then you wear that white shirt for a day and you'll be just as happy." Okay, so the king basically set out to look for such a person. And they went to the wisest people in the country. And he took their white shirts and wore them for like a day. Nothing happened. Okay, so then he went to the wealthiest people in the country. Same thing, nothing happened. Then he went to like the best looking people. Nothing happened. And then just as he was very worried returning home from this whole scavenger hunt, he encountered this guy like on the street, and he was like super happy. He's singing songs and he's dancing and he's singing. He's literally saying, "I'm as happy can be." So the king's like, "Okay, immediately get him. Okay, I need to like, this is it, right? Let's do it." So they capture the guy, have the guy come to the king, and the king saw that he was wearing a jacket, right? So the king ordered them take his jacket off and remove his white shirt so he can wear it. And the guy didn't have a white shirt, and he said he doesn't own one. And that's the end of the story. I feel sometimes when talking to you, it's like, I feel you're at peace and you're generally happy, and I'm trying to find the secret ingredient. But somehow I sort of get a little bit, but not the whole thing. And it's similar to the story. And I don't know if this is sort of fatalistic, basically saying some people will be happy and that's fate, and some people will not be, and that's just how it is. Or I don't know, maybe, it's still sort of an objective that that people like me, right, are still searching. So, but
it's a balance. It's a balance. If you're too peaceful, then you're probably not ambitious enough. Then it's more likely you're not going to do a lot of great things. But if you're too ambitious, it's harder for you to get happier.
Yeah, well, one thing I definitely learned from you is to basically surround yourself with people that would bring the best craftsmanship out of you. So the way I think about it is I think craftsmanship leads to happiness, because craftsmanship indicates excellence, it indicates a state of flow, right? And then those things generally induce long-term pleasure. Now, but to get in the mindset of craftsmanship, you need to surround yourself with the right people, right? Not the jealous kind, the anxious kind, the shortcut-seeking kind. And now, if you have the right parents, I think that's a very good start, because you don't get to pick that group. So, okay. Well, thank you very much, Noah, for coming on Chinatown 2.0. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Goodbye, Noah.
Bye.
Take care.